Alright, this I knew. I know y'all see the title. I know niggas finna get in they feeling. You know what I'm saying? Y'all be mad when I post about the shit on Facebook. But some topics need to be addressed. So this lecture here, this video is called Modern Hellenism and Sexism. Because we all know the way we've been treating our women is not a part of our culture. And I'm about to prove to y'all that a lot of us have been indoctrinated into the ways we view our women today. So let's go and get into this. I'm using new software, so bear with me a little bit. All right, we're going to start off with normalization. Normalization refers to the social process through which ideas and action come to be seen as normal and become taken for granted or natural in everyday life. In sociological theory, normalization appears in two forms. The first concept of normalization is found in the work of Michael Foucault, especially Discipline and Punish, in the context of his account of disciplinary power. As Foucault used the term, normalization involves the construction of an idealized norm of conduct. For example, the way a proper soldier ideally should stand, march, present his arms, and so on, as defined in minute detail, and then rewarding or punishing individuals for conforming to or deviating from this idea. In Foucault's account, normalization was one of an ensemble of tactics of exerting the maximum social control with the minimum expenditure of force, which Foucault calls disciplinary power. Disciplinary power emerged over the course of the 19th century, came to be used extensively in military, barracks, hospitals, asylums, schools, factories, offices, and so on, and hence became a crucial aspect of social structure in modern societies. The second is normalization process is a middle range theory used mainly in medical sociology and science and technical studies to provide a framework for understanding the social processes by which new ways of thinking, working, and organizing become routinely incorporated in everyday work. The normalization process has its roots in empirical studies of technological innovation in healthcare, and especially in the evaluation of complex interventions. There are different behavioral attitudes humans accept as normal, such as grief of a loved one, avoiding danger, and not participating in cannibalism. Now, this is from a book, a psychology book. It's a little cut off at the top. I'm going to be using a lot of psychology terms. You know, sometimes I get grasped into reading, so excuse me if I don't explain everything how y'all like, but the point's going to get across. Now, this is kind of a complicated explanation, so I am going to explain some of this. Critical attention to whiteness in its normalization opens space for counter hegemonic resistances to Eurocentric domination, including the authorization of non-dominant epistemologies and marginalized social texts. Now, epistemology is the study and theory of knowledge. However, this opening is tenuous, dependent on cultural practices of knowledge production that are martially conditioned through social power relations of dominance. For example, although academic institutions are arguably characterized by commitments to freedom of thought, indigenous academics struggle against distinctively European discourse that produces intellectual fringe dwellers. Now that's basically saying that anything that's going against the European being thought is against the dominance of normalization that they done put into place. More likely seen as political activists. Now they're saying like anybody that thinks differently from the normalization process Europeans put into place is seen as a political activist. More likely seen as political activists than legitimate contributors to authorized knowledge production, these experiences testify to the ongoing privilege of Western ways of knowing and the iteration of Eurocentric representation that risks perpetually reproducing the subjugations of colonism. Now, normalization is a form of colonism. I want y'all to understand that shit. You know what I'm saying? The things that we see is that we saw as unnatural at one point, we see as normal. That's a form of colonization. That's an important part of information to remember going on in this video. Normalization of Western discourse as a technique of subjugation intersects with the neoliberalism and globalization that hold us to our place in post-colonialism. Our specific risks for critical psychology are concerned with the ongoing colonization through reinscribing white authority over non-West. So they basically saying that, you know, they be having to reimpose their authority through normalization. Post-colonial theory opens the space to reflexively critique side discourse in relation to the social power relations through which normalization constitutes others and iterates Eurocentric dominance. The risk of not engaging with post-colonial theory is the risk of constructing differences among peoples through knowledge production processes that have dehumanized indigenous people. The risk of engaging in post-colonial theory is a risk of writing back to colonial centers and reproducing relations of center and margin that function to normal Eurocentric discourse. The critical, too, risk overriding our differences with the sameness derived from the reifying a partial position within the discursive, material, and cultural constitutes for articulating interrelationships of mutuality. I know that was a lot. I'll have to bury me on these slides. Okay. This coming from a book of Gender and Culture in Psychology. And this part is called Normalization Process and Disciplinary Power. This is going back to Foucault's. This is another explanation just in case you didn't understand the last one. Foucault's concept of normalization is of special interest to psychologists. Normalization refers to the process by which a particular way of life or way of being a person comes to feel natural as the way with all others seeming deviant. This way of being becomes a source of pride, self-worth, and pleasure. It is experienced as self-fulfilling. Normalization takes place through what Foucault called disciplinary power. This term points specifically to the power of the ordinary to discipline individuals. Such disciplinary power operates through social institutes such as education, medicine, work, law, marriage, and religion, as well as through the social institutions of mental health professions. We're going to get into that second one. We're going to get into the portrayal of women in media propagates sexism. Now, this was written in 2014. It may be 2014, but the silver screen has been stuck in a temporal loop since the 1950s. Sexism in media has been normalized over time so much that we don't even realize it anymore. A study from the University of Southern California captures how women are still underrepresented in the media. To begin with, only 1.9% of directors are female, and 25% of all speaking roles in animated films are filled by women. Lastly, of 25,000 speaking characters in 600 top grossing films between 2007 and 2013, only 20 to 27% were women. So you can see how even letting women talk in movies and being leading roles, it's still not common till today. And it's normal. We don't think nothing of that shit because that's what we've been exposed to our entire lives. So the author goes on to keep saying, why haven't the alarms been sounded? The authorities notified a riot started in the streets. Even though this issue doesn't seem to be widely contested, we definitely are fighting battles on behalf of women in the media anyway. One of these battles have resulted in a total body image revolution. One of the primary focuses of women in the media has been to abolish the idea of a perfect body type. Great news for the 99% of the women in the world who don't look like models. I personally find it easier to face myself unashamed in the mirror nowadays. Yay. However, at the same time, how have we all failed to grasp that apparently only a third, less than a third even, of speaking roles are women? The best answer to that is the status quo. To begin with, the percentage of characters in family films wearing sexy attire by gender is 28.7% female and only 8% male. And that's showing you that, like, mostly the only way a woman can even get in a movie is by dressing in a sexy manner, I guess, for lack of better words. This fact makes you recall many characters such as Ariel from The Little Mermaid, Jasmine from Aladdin, and Meg from Hercules. You pause and ask yourself why you didn't ever question their apparel. Why are these outfits considered okay to include in a children's movie to begin with? What subliminal messages could they have planted in our brains when it was at most pliable state? Most women have been getting over the historical damsel in distress period, but it seems that women have traded one evil for another. Young women are being hypersexualized, and the media has reinforced it with normalization. So this is a common thing. This is something we need to abolish, it's a lot of men out there that got daughters, and we don't want them to think the only way they can be successful is to present themselves in a matter where sex sells them. And I got this from the Cultural Encyclopedia of Breast. Although many young people believe sexism is a thing of the past, it remains persistent in modern society and is deeply entrenched in U.S. culture. At the core of sexism is the social construction of gender, where in a patriarchal society, everything male and heterosexual is seen as the norm, and everything outside of the norm is seen as able or less worthy. Sexism operates within all our institutional structures and comes to be thought of as normal. While sexism provides advantages to some, namely men, it also limits opportunities. Through the normalization of sexism in society, where men receive privileges, amass the majority of resources and power, you don't never see a lot. It's really no women that own major oil companies. Nothing that's nothing that society relies on. That's a major problem because of the greed that's natural in this society. Women come to internalize this unequal distribution as reality. In addition to internalize the unequal distribution of resources, they also internalize all the attributes that are associated with the reasons why the dominant group continues to subordinate them. Philosopher Marilyn Fry has used the metaphor of a birdcage to describe sexism. Sexism is pervasive throughout society. Although it appears to be permeable, in reality, like a birdcage, sexism keeps its victim trapped. Sexism is obvious in the way some men view women as objects of beauty for their own sexual pleasure. Now here goes the definition of sexism for you niggas that's just slow out there. Prejudice, stereotyping, or discrimination, typically against women on the basis of sex. Now here goes another article. Gentleman's Mag normalizes sexist jokes. Gentleman magazines are well known for their liberal usage of sexist humor and a masculine take on subject matter. A group of studies released this week demonstrate the extent to which these magazines normalize sexism. Magazines such as FHM and GQ have always argued that their brand of sexist humor is harmless. The magazines hold this view because they claim their readers see the humor as ironic. A trio of studies published this week in the journal Psychology of Men and Masculinities put this old way of thinking to bed. These 3 studies on the topic are a joint effort between social psychologists at the University of Surrey, Clark University, University of Ghent, and Middlesex University of London, all in the United Kingdom. The present studies build on findings from previous research carried out by the University of Surrey. Results from their earlier work sparked renewed public debate about whether gentlemen's magazines help normalize sexist attitudes in a society. Now, when you see things every day, you read about this shit every day, it becomes normal to you whether you know it or not. That's a part of indoctrination. You know what I'm saying? That's the same way they do you in school. You grow up, but only difference is you paying for the material to do that shit to you. Now, here goes the 3 studies on sexism in gentlemen's magazines. Y'all thought I wasn't going to get the 3 studies, but I did. In the first of the 3 studies, 81 men aged 18 to 50 were presented with sexist jokes, either in or out of the context of a gentleman's magazine. Younger men, especially those who scored lower on sexism measures, found these jokes less hostile in the context of a gentleman's magazine, but not more ironic or funnier. The second study involved 423 men from the UK aged 18 to 30. Now, I'm using UK references because those are the people who indoctrinated you. Those are the people who colonized you. Those are the people who you are subconsciously reflecting. In this study, the researchers set out to look for a correlation between sexism and the consumption of gentlemen's magazines. They found that men who displayed ambivalent sexism were more likely to consume gentlemen's magazine than other men. However, they were not more likely to participate in other forms of more direct sexual consumption, such as strip clubs or paying for sex. In the third and final experiment, 207 undergraduate students in the United States were used as participants. This study required that the participants to sort quotations taken from gentlemen's magazines and convicted rapists. Only half of the quotations were correctly identified. So you can only tell half of this shit apart from statements that rapists have made. You got to think about that shit. You know what I'm saying? Once the participants were made aware of this, they viewed the magazines as less legitimate. You know, so you got to view everything less legitimate that you reading after you realize you can't tell the statements apart from a rapist. These latest studies demonstrate how a concrete source of social influence, gentlemen's magazines, can shape the expression of a prejudice that is generally considered unacceptable in egalitarian society. And I want y'all to remember that word too. However, in a microcosm of what we have seen in Gentleman's Magazine market in recent years, when the extreme hostility of the content is made obvious, men are more likely to reject these magazines. So when it's obvious, you know what I'm saying, it's easy to reject that shit. But a lot of that shit's not obvious. It's subconsciously turning you into something you don't want to be. I see this shit all the time. You know what I'm saying? By niggas that claim the black woman is God every day. Now, this is a excerpt from a book called Sexploitation, Sexual Profiling and the Illusion of Gender. I know I'm doing a lot of reading at first, but we finna get into some deep shit in a second. Thus, indoctrination based on scientific sexism is in great part responsible for the intractable attitudes about gender. This indoctrination extends to issues of orientation, gender performance, and identity, seeking to restrict anything that departs from its tenets. Now, remember what they were saying about normalization. Despite growing scientific evidence rebutting gender assumptions, this indoctrination remains the status quo. This resistance to change stems mostly from attachments to perceived privileges without seeing possibilities for greater benefits. Now, y'all remember they just put this NASA movie out with the black woman who helped them get to space. That's what this is talking about, you know what I'm saying? The only way they would deviate from these views is if they perceive the possibilities of greater benefits. You know what I'm saying? So if they couldn't get them to space, them black women wouldn't have had them jobs. That's what they saying. You know what I'm saying? Or if they wasn't as good as what they are or were. For example, counter-rhetorics against women mistakenly view issues affecting gender as only benefiting women and undermining male privilege. Now, if you feel like women being good at what they do is undermining your so-called male privilege, you know what I'm saying, that's an identity crisis within itself. You know what I'm saying? You having a hard time recognizing your own masculinity if you threatened by what a woman can do. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Take, for example, the enactment of the Family Leave Act. Though very much imperfect, the act after its passage now benefits men as well as women. As such, and with key improvements, a cooperative approach to family leave could help improve the quality of life of all, ultimately benefiting society. Yet, instead of encouraging such an approach, today's public discourse insists on painting a picture of women seeking to appropriate all of society's scarce resources, which is just a horrible view. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of you niggas is guilty of this shit too. Y'all be on Facebook talking shit about women that use child support and fucking food stamps and stuff. It's none of your damn business. Niggas use the shit too. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get rid of these dumbass views white people done put in y'all head. As a result, in much of gender equity, due to antagonistic realities, men have indeed been considered the enemy. Face it, male privilege has been pretty steadfast and unrelenting. Now, a lot of y'all men out there feel like the women be bashing you. You know what I'm saying? You need to nut up, tighten your britches, you know what I'm saying? And the concerns about women should always come first. The concerns of your creator should always come first, you know what I'm saying? So instead of feeling like it's a direct attack on you, you need to be checking the next nigga for doing the shit they talking about. If you ain't guilty, you ain't got nothing to be mad about. You know what I'm saying? Like the saying say, you know, if the shoe fit, then wear it. You know what I'm saying? If it don't, shit, you need to go around and see who feet do fit and check their ass. You know what I'm saying? As such, and with key improvements, as a result, sexual sexism and gender-based inequities remain permanent, all based on illusionary ideas of one sex being superior to the other. This social construction of what we know of as gender works both ways. In order to create the myths that subjugate women, society has crafted a myriad of illusions that also enslave men. See, I don't even know y'all been enslaved, indoctrinated. You still slaves under colonization with that train of thought. Some men are slowly becoming more mindful of this fact, as they are not allowed to deviate from expected norms and behaviors as freely as they anticipated. Like me, when I post about that shit on Facebook, it be 150 suspect ass niggas that hate women who got a comment on that shit. You know what I'm saying? You can call me a feminazi all you want. I salute in hell to a woman before I do it to some other nigga. Unfortunately, a counter movement based on men's rights has equally erroneously focused on men victimized by women rather than question the inherent harmful effects of patriarchy. And that's what y'all got to realize. We live in a patriarchy society. You know, and the fact that you even trying to defend that shit, it shows you that you're a victim of this neo-Hellenism. Now, neo is another word for modern. That's why I called this lecture Modern Hellenism and Sexism. Hellenism as surviving or revived in modern times, the practice of ancient Greek ideas in modern life or art. Now I'm finna show y'all how bad y'all been colonized. I got this from the Atlas of Cities, European Legacies in the Passage from Ancient to Modern Athens. The global imagination connects modern and classical Athens through their cultural landscapes of advocate symbolism. Over a long period, Athens has enchanted personalities from Roman emperors like Hadrian to modern intellects like Gustav Flaubert and Sigmund Freud and all these other peckerwoods. Hellenism, through selective reinterpretations of classical Athens, it borrowed its conceptual apparatus and in its architecture at the same time trying to forge a modern Hellenic identity as imagined by Europe. And this is important because Europe is the people that colonized us. This is explaining you that they purposely used Hellenism for a construct of their society. This is the way they want it, the way it always has been, and you falling right into their trap. Now, exploring the socialism of young people. This is from a book, I know it's cut off, A Feminist Manifesto for Education. Exploring the socialism of young people provided clear insights into sexism being promoted through social media, which are targeted particularly at young people and is considerably more intense than what is currently available through public broadcasting and media targeted primarily at adults. Now, I be trying to tell people, y'all be taking part in your own brainwashing, sharing shit you don't agree with. You know what I'm saying? If you don't think that shit should be a part of society, you got the option to share that shit or just keep reporting that shit till they take that shit off. You know what I'm saying? Be petty with it. You know what I'm saying? Don't share that shit and give your whole negative view. You know what I'm saying? You adding energy to a topic you don't want to exist. You know what I'm saying? You don't realize how contradictory that is. That's shit. Negative press is still good press. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers don't care about negative press. That shit still sells. That shit still getting the ideas out there. You still keeping that shit alive. The values conveyed through social media are communicated to young people personally and privately, and this is relatively unmediated by adults who can, in other arenas, monitor, advise, or raise questions with young people about the influential resources of information. Consequently, youth workers and those who train them need to become more literate in social media to develop skills to identify, intervene in, and challenge sexism and GBV in this relatively new public-private space that perpetuates it. Related to this is the need to raise awareness of the link between the sexual liberation of women and its confusion with the sexualization of women. So I probably be guilty of it too sometimes. I ain't perfect, but you know, we gotta do better on how we market our women on social media. Prime example. Somebody posted this dude yesterday, my nigga Tony. I know y'all see his name. I don't know this dude. I was gonna block his name out, you know, but if he didn't want to get put on blast, he wouldn't have put the shit on Facebook. Now we got this nigga Rajah Shine. It ain't his real name, so he'll be alright. He got his picture up there though, and I know this hard to see, but I'm gonna tell y'all what this shit say. It say blah blah blah. Black women are not what they say. Trust me. Better not bring your whole heart. Bitches these days are enemies to the lovers. All they want is drama, games, hard penis, more drama, misery, money, drama, fuck bitches, keep it pushing. Keep going. To his other post, I hate black hoes. Y'all niggas enjoy. I'm too good for y'all. I despise black bitches, ghetto, and gutter minds. I'm not even caring what happens to y'all. Now I want y'all to notice something about this dude page. He obviously looked like a religious man. You know what I'm saying? We touched that topic when we was talking about how normalization can indoctrinate people through religion. Now I want y'all to look at this word right here, mentor. Now I want y'all to see how y'all been subconsciously indoctrinated into hurting and disrespecting women by another culture. Now you look at the word mentor. This is what he is. You know, he got his little horse and shit. You know, I could tell he not all the way in tune with his masculine side. He got an identity crisis by the way he hate women. You know, I'm finna show y'all why. You know, stop sexism. That you need to stop, nigga. Shit. Now, ancient Greece. This is from prehistoric to Hellenistic times. You know what I'm saying? I'm staying in the Hellenistic region. By Thomas R. Martin from Yale University Press, New Haven and London Publications. Now, this is about mentor. You know what I'm saying? I'm finna show y'all why he don't like women. The boy will learn about public life by spending his time in the company of older men and his adult friends. During the day, the boy will observe his mentor talking politics in the agora or giving speeches in the assembly or courts, help him perform his duties in public office, and work out with him in the gymnasium. Now, we all know the history behind that weird-ass shit. Their evenings will be spent at a symposium, a drinking party for men and companions, which could encompass a range of behavior from serious political and philosophical discussions to riotous partying. Such mentor-protege relationship commonly implied homosexual love as an impression of the bond between the boy and the older male, who would normally be married. So he probably got a woman out there he like. You know what I'm saying? But he's a mentor. You know, he doesn't really like women. You know, you can see it through his mind state. This is how we've been indoctrinated, you know, even through language. You know, there's something called linguistic imperialism. If you don't master the English language, you'll never understand the grasp it has on your mind by the definition of words and the history behind them. And we all like to say spelling is spells. That nigga's under a deep spell right there. Now this is from a book called Body Aesthetics. This is the other page is cut off, but this is a quote from Plato, one of the most famous Greek historians and philosophers. He defined women as deformed males, ranking them with children and slaves far below free men in ancient Greece. Casting females as one who lacked what males have: phallus, penis, intelligence, power, set a foundation for the privileging of male over female in the history of Western civilization. Now, this is what they're trying to normalize through indoctrination. This is a foundation to the Greek civilization. This is what Hellenism was built on. This is what you've been indoctrinated into. This is what we need to let go. Whether in the general social sphere or as we saw with the history of the Olympics that started with the Greeks in the 8th century BCE with sport, women fared no better throughout the history of philosophy, with the most infamous misogynists like Rousseau and Schopenhauer denouncing the base and bodily nature of women, her emotional instability, and her lack of capacity for virtue, unless virtue was defined as physical external beauty that brought pleasure to men. Now I'm showing y'all, I just went through and showed y'all the studies, you know what I'm saying, where this is existing in modern times. I showed y'all how they trying to indoctrinate a Hellenistic society, and I'm showing y'all the root of this shit. You know what I'm saying? We supposed to be conscious Africans, but y'all acting like Greeks. Y'all acting like fucking Peckerwoods. Even dubious pronouncements from Descartes, Burke, and Kant rarely veered far from the historical conceptualization of women as inferior, and in fact, women as body to be looked at. The repetitive belittling of women by philosophers and theologians affected women's legal status, economic options, and political identity. Recall, women were denied the vote in the United States until 1920. And most of all, women's sense of self-worth and confidence. The consensus from the history of the philosophy was clear. Woman was a category that captured the pervasive sexism of the ages. This sexism extended to the way male writers characterized women in narratives, as well as the way male artists depicted their bodies. Consider the history of the female body in Western art, from ancient Greek times through the early 21st century, which established the norms of Western white heterosexual female beauty that continue to influence the narrow ways that women are portrayed today in popular culture, films, video games, advertisement, and sport. The history of art is replete with examples that habituate viewers repeatedly to see women through a lens we call perceptual sexism, a cognitive framework based on an underlying set of beliefs, values, and expectations that devalue women, that influences one's succeeding acts of perception to see mistakenly a woman on display in specific and a limiting way. And a lot of y'all are subconsciously like this. Y'all don't realize, the way we collectively view women is like the white man. And I'm showing you how they treated their women their entire history. You don't want to fall under no categories with no white men. This is why our women are starting to reject us at such a high rate. You know what I'm saying? They might as well go to a white man because we acting like them. You know what I'm saying? There's not no difference right now. Collectively, we got to do better. Now, this is the word I told y'all to look out for earlier. Egalitarianism. Egalitarianism, the doctrine that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. Now, this is from Out of the Revolution, the Development of Africana Studies. The validation of the credibility of the need for inclusion of issues of African women into black studies curricula does not rest upon denigration of Eurocentric women's studies. Rather, black women in black studies call upon all of those involved to become African-centered and to remember the egalitarianism of the ancient African civilizations. So by you being indoctrinated under Hellenism, you are veering from what your ancestors were doing. The whole goal of embracing your culture is to embrace the culture of Africa. So if you having these views that Europeans have, how the fuck are you African? You know what I'm saying? Thus, the range of black women's experiences from the time of those ancient civilizations to the current issues of racism, sexism, and economic exploitation, as particularly experienced by black women, must be researched and evaluated with respect to plans for policy and action. You know what I'm saying? So we got to take action into this shit. Extensively black male scholars who have dominated in black studies, and in particular, many of those who have been the most vocal about Afrocentricity, excuse me, my mouth dry as fuck, and or African-centeredness in their presentations to the black community, have within their departments and their networks excluded appropriate attention to the paradigms that allow for study in about the culturally defined sex roles that have origins in the concepts of the Ma'at and originated in ancient African civilizations. Now, that's a whole lot of niggas talking about Ma'at. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no Ma'at without egalitarianism. That's just point blank, period. Drink some of this tea right quick, man. Such exclusion must not only end as practiced by selected black male leaders in black studies as they function within higher education, but also such as males function as national African female personship. The egalitarian nature of the male-female relationship in ancient African civilizations was pervasive in families. Such research also has particular meaning for directions in studies concerned with the contemporary African American family and male and female relationships. As the Egyptologist Barbara Lesko reports, Egyptian women were certainly not hesitant to appear in public, whether as merchants in the public marketplace or in the picking line supporting their husbands in the first recorded labor strike in history. You know what I'm saying? And the first recorded labor strike in history happened with the builders of the pyramids. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't no fucking slaves building the pyramids. Slaves can't go on labor strikes and ask for higher wages. Now, when we was on these labor strikes, our women was right there next to us. So we need to be right there next to them when facing things like sexism. Indeed, we take the trouble to examine Egyptian records. Our understanding of the social condition of the ancient Egyptian woman is a far cry from the human misery imagined by the classicist Edith Hamilton. The woman of ancient Greece was indeed in a pitiable plight, cloistered at home with her distaff, while the men of her society filled the markets, theaters, and stadia and law courts, which is the complete opposite in Africa. If you want to be African, you can't be acting like these Greeks. I'm going to show you point after point. Nor were Greek husband and wives found together, sharing life's trials and delights as respected and equal citizens in their secular and religious communities, enjoying equality under the law as well. Surely this was one of the glories of ancient Egypt. It's one of the glories of Africa in completion. You know what I'm saying? You niggas ain't African. Y'all melanated Greeks. That's why y'all pledging Greek. You know what I'm saying? Y'all doing all this Greek shit. Everything but being an African. This is from a book, Introduction to African American Studies. The matriarchy issue sparked interest in re-examining sex roles in African American martial relationships. Differential historical and economic factors reduced the significance of comparing black with white sex roles and attitudes. You know what I'm saying? That's just saying that, we really can't relate our struggles, to theirs when it comes to our relationships. You know what I'm saying? Most black couples, we looking for somebody who already built. That shit's not gonna happen all the time. You know what I'm saying? Comparing our lifestyles to Greece is not gonna happen under the society that we live in. It's not. We don't have the same advantages or disadvantages. So we need to be able to help where one person ain't got this shit, the other person got to help there. You know what I'm saying? We got to stop expecting for everybody to be set all the fucking time. That's unrealistic. Those are European ideologies. You know what I'm saying? Your parents didn't leave you nothing but probably a few bills when they pass. You know what I'm saying? Nevertheless, maybe I ain't gonna say just a few bills. You know what I'm saying? Some of us, we get to the point where we can leave houses, cars, things worth value. So I ain't gonna just down my people like that. Nevertheless, African Americans are inevitably influenced by white social paradigms to some degree. Therefore, attempts have been made to fit the analysis of black martial sex roles into the conventional sociological classifications of traditional, contemporary, or modern and egalitarian. The traditional arrangement differentiates martial or mate responsibilities on a sexual basis. In marriage, the husband has the primary responsibility for financially supporting the family, and the wife has the basic responsibility for maintaining the home and for child rearing. Contemporary or modern sex role proponents reject the notion of ascribing any responsibilities or activities on a sexual basis. You know what I'm saying? So we need to drop that Greek shit. I'm telling y'all, we is not gonna get nowhere as a people living by these Hellenistic standards. You know what I'm saying? Those that's not a part of our DNA. That's not a part of our structure. We need to immediately drop that shit to repair the black family and bring our woman back up to where she needs to be. The egalitarian philosophy developed from the socio-economic necessity of both husband and wife, or man and woman, having to work to support the home or household. Egalitarian relationships operate with the understanding that the professions or occupations of both partners are of equal importance and practice shared responsibilities in the management and execution of home or household duties. Now go on, split that shit right down the middle. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of black women saying, I ain't gonna date no nigga that ain't gonna pay all my bills. You know what I'm saying? Well, you putting yourself in the place of a Greek woman. You just wanna stay home and rear the kids without any social importance. You know what I'm saying? That's been indoctrinated into you. You can't feel comfortable with that. And we can't let our women feel comfortable with that. Now, this is from a book, Progressive Black Masculinities. Now, this is about Tony Cad Bambara challenged us to imagine over 30 years ago in her groundbreaking anthology, The Black Woman. Her compelling essay on the issues of roles was the first to interrogate the pitfalls of the African American community's uncritical embrace of dominant cultural definitions of masculinity and femininity. Generally speaking, in a capitalist society, a man is expected to be an aggressive, uncompromising, factual, lusty, intelligent, provider of goods, and the woman a retiring, gracious, emotional, intuitive, active consumer of goods. We have not been immune to the conditioning at all. We have been thoroughly indoctrinated into those beliefs. We are just as jammed in the rigid confines of those basically oppressive, socially contrived roles. Anticipating a fundamental premise of the emerging field of women's studies, she understands from her study of post-colonial Africa, Asia, and the South Seas and the Americans that gender conceptions of what it means to be male and female is a cultural construction. So we need to drop this culture we done picked up from them. She noted cultures have conceived of man and woman in a variety of ways, and human nature is pretty malleable quality, recalling the more egalitarian nature of some societies before contact with Europeans and Christianity. She explained, there is nothing to indicate that the Sauk, Seminole, Iroquois, and other Indian nations felt oppressed or threatened by their women. So she even coming to America before colonization. So all y'all niggas that, you know, we all know we came over here as Africans, but all y'all niggas who claim y'all ancestors didn't start in Africa and y'all melanated people was over here, y'all guilty of the same shit damn near. And she telling y'all that shit didn't even exist over here either. So y'all ain't excluded. Who had mobility privileges and a voice in governing and commune. With respect to our African ancestors, she asserted, the woman was neither subordinate nor dominant, but a sharer in policy making and privileges, painfully aware that the antagonism between the sexes, Kate and Sis, that we fashion revolutionary selves and revolutionary lives, revolutionary relationships, by abandoning dysfunctional definitions of manhood and womanhood, which stifle the development of healthy black communities. It is fair to assert that Kate is in some ways a spiritual daughter of Du Bois. Now I think that's my last slide. It is. So I done made my point. You know what I'm saying? We need to drop these Greek traditions. That's the only way we finna rebuild the black community, is by becoming revolutionary people in our minds and in our relationships and returning to an egalitarian state of mind.